All right, CNT125, IP version 6 lab. Previously, we looked at our map to get our game plan. We configured our router interfaces for IP version 6. Then we configured the routing protocol for IP version 6. So what we're going to do in this part now is get our workstations into the network and running IP version 6. So that's where we are down here on this page. Now, reminder real quickly, we have two workstations we're going to use, one on this side and one on this side. Make sure they are cabled into the correct switch that you want to be using, okay? So make sure you're paying attention to that. We are going to build the IP version 6 address for these PCs where we do the following. We're going to use the subnet or network for the first half of the address. And the second half of the address, we're going to use the tail end of the MAC address. Because if you remember back in 120, MAC address, the first half identifies the manufacturer. The second half is unique to that node, if you will. So we're going to use the subnet IP version 6 address, if you will, the network portion of the IP version 6 address for the first half. And the second half of our IP version 6 address, we're going to use the second half of the MAC address for that node. So what we need to do, all right, on my workstation here, okay, this workstation that I'm working on right now is this one cabled into the network, the one on the left over here, okay. The one I'm using right now is this guy cabled into this router. So I'm going to do an IP config here /all because I want the MAC address of this node. So I'm going to scroll up to Ethernet 3 and I'm looking for the physical address right here. So I'm going to highlight that and I'm going to copy it. From my command prompt, if I hit the enter key, it copies it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up a notepad just so you can see what I'm doing. So let's do notepad here. So on this PC, here's the MAC address. Okay, I'm going to take the tail end of this MAC address and I'm going to use it for the tail end of the IP. Well, this PC again is on this network. So this network, all right, the network address over here, IP version 6 network, for this guy is the FC00:A:A:A network. We are now going to take the MAC address for the second half. And that's what I just copied here. I just copied that right there. Okay, actually let me put this up here. This was my MAC address that I copied. So I'm going to take the second half of the MAC address, second half of my MAC address to make the second half of the IP address. So I'm going to take this right here, 2A326C on my example. I'm going to paste that in there, and then I'm just going to do the same format that it's using. So here's the network portion of the address, and my host portion of the address is going to be this second half of my MAC address right here. So when I combine the two, I'm going to have this right here, and then I'm going to have this right here. Bada bing, bada boom. That is my IP version 6 address for this node. And all I did was take the network piece and add the second half of the MAC. That's all I did. So there is my IP address. I will copy that. And I'm going to open up my workstation. I'm going to open up my workstation and plug that in. So I'm going to go to my network settings. I can go here to network and sharing if I want. I'll do network internet. I'll look for network and sharing. This time around, Ethernet 3, properties. I don't want IP4. I'm going to scroll down until I get IP6 and go properties. I'm going to say use the following address, and I'm going to paste in there what I just built. And I'm going to make sure there's no spaces on the end, and I'm going to make sure there's no spaces at the beginning. Make sure there's no spaces in there that will make an error. I'm then going to click here, and I'm going to plug in 64. It should come up with 64. It basically says this first half is network and the second half is host. That's basically what it says. So that's what we want to do. So there's my IP. I don't have the gateway yet, but I at least have the IP. So I'll apply that so I don't lose it. Now I need to get the gateway address. Okay. The gateway address I need to get from the router. So in this network, again, I'm doing this PC. It's connected to this router, the 2811. So I'm in the 2811 router right now, right there. If I do a show run, it does not show me the full IP address. It does not show me the full IP address. So I have to use a separate command. I have to do a show IP version 6 interface command. Oh my goodness, here we go. And I need to show the interface of this port, Fast Ethernet 00. So I need to say show IP version 6 interface, Fast Ethernet 0/0. When I do, it shows me all the parameters of this interface, and most importantly, my unicast address right here is this guy. And it says this address is from this subnet, because we defined the subnet. And what it did was it took the MAC address and put it in for the last half of the address here. So this is actually the router interface address. So we need to highlight that, and I need to do like a Control-C copy doodad, because that's going to be my gateway address. So I'm going to put it over here in my PC IP version 6 address. I now need the gateway address. I'll put this here as gateway address, and I'll paste that in so I have that. So this was the IP address I built. This is the gateway I got from the router. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to go back to my IP settings. I should have them still hanging around here. IP version 6, and I'm going to paste in the gateway. Again, make sure there's no spaces at the end or at the beginning. Double check, double check, double check, double check, double check. Okay? A space will cause an error. I'm going to apply that. That is my IP version 6 address. Now, let me show you something. If I have a space on the end, when I go to apply this, it's going to say invalid. So that's where I would come in and make sure I don't have any spaces on the end or the beginning. It's very easy to do. So double check that, double check that, double check that. All right, I have applied that. So on my workstation here, I'm closing out all these extra windows. I have all kinds of extra windows open. Okay. On my workstation now, IP config, I'm going to look at Ethernet 3. Where is my, where is he? Where is he? There he is. There's my address right there. FC00A:A:A. It added an extra 0 in there to fill in all the bits, so we have 128 bits. 2A326C. There is my IP address. So, not hard, just really tedious to do. I'm going to do that for the first PC. And then I will need to repeat this process for the other PC. Okay? I will need to repeat this process over here for this PC, making sure I note that it's FC00A:A:C. And the gateway address, I need to plug the console into this router, the 4221. And I will need to do this show IP version 6 interface command here to get that address that I'm going to plug in for the gateway. So I'm going to repeat this process. I'm just going to repeat it with the 4221 router so I can get this gateway address. Okay? I'm going to pause for a second while I do that on my setup. Okay, and we're back. I went to my other PC and I set its IP address and set its gateway. So that node is now over here on my network. So I now have that node on the network that I'm going to be able to communicate with. And just, I put it here for easy reference because you can't see both of my screens. That is the IP address of the machine, that PC on the other side of the network. So this is the PC I'm using here right now. This is the PC on the other side of my network. So I'm keeping that address handy. All right, now that I have both of those set, we're going to do a couple tests. We need to do a couple ping addresses, but with version 6. So we're going to start off with, I'm going to start with my PC here. Let me open my command prompt again. The first thing I want to do is I want to ping my loopback. So if you've never done a loopback on IP6, so we're going to do ping -6, and we're going to use ::1. That's the loopback address for IP version 6. So it's installed and ready to go. let's ping the default gateway. So that's something that I had recorded. The default gateway for this PC I'm on is this one right here. I can also get that by doing ipconfig. If I look here under 3, here is my default gateway, so I could always highlight that. I'm going to hit the enter key to copy, and I'm going to do ping space -6, and I'll right click paste that in. There's my router, so I've pinged the router. I'm communicating with the router. And the next thing I'll do is once I get that working, I'll do that on the other side of my network too. I'm then going to ping across the network to that other PC. So that's why I copied this address over here. This is the PC on the other side of my network. FC00A:A:C. I know it's on that side of the network. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to try a ping -6 here again. I'll right click, paste that address in, and I'm going to give it a whirl. And that's what I should be seeing. If I do not, I need to very carefully retrace my steps, check my IPs, check my gateways. A simple space, a simple digit out of place, and things don't work. These aren't hard, they're just very tedious to deal with. So you have to be very deliberate in getting these addresses and gateways plugged in. Alright, so I got a ping across. The next thing I'll do is I will also do a trace route -6. And I'm also going to paste that address in too. And I should see this moving through my network. I should see it hit the first router, the A router, then I should see it hit the B router, and then I should see it hit the C router. That's what I should be seeing. So we're going to give it a second to do its thing. There's the A router, then there's the B router, and then there's the C node. Yes! Yes, yes, yes. That's what I should be seeing. So my IPv6 network is up and running. All right. I'm going to come back in the next podcast and we'll take a look at our IPv6 packets in our network.